The auctioneer's voice echoed across the dusty town square of Copper Creek, Arizona Territory, 1878. "Step right up, gentlemen. Look at this fine specimen of womanhood, though she's got a mind that needs taming." The crowd of men jeered as Nora Bennett stood on the wooden platform, her chin held high despite the humiliation. She wore men's trousers, bound at the wrists, her auburn hair falling loose around her shoulders after they'd ripped off her hat. "This one's been caught not once, but twice wearing pants like a man. Sheriff says she's too much trouble for the town jail. Starting bid is $20 for anyone willing to take on this wild cat." Nora's eyes blazed with fury as she scanned the crowd. She hadn't expected her arrival in Copper Creek to end like this. Just 3 days in town, and already she was being sold to the highest bidder for the crime of wearing practical clothing. The blisters on her feet from the women's boots she'd been forced to wear during her brief jail stay only strengthened her resolve. From the back of the crowd, Finn Morgan watched with growing disgust. He'd only stopped in Copper Creek for supplies before heading back to his ranch, but what he witnessed made his blood boil. His hand instinctively moved to the pistol at his hip, but he forced it back down. Violence wouldn't solve this, at least not yet. $25. Shouted a red-faced miner, eyeing Nora like she was a piece of meat. $30, called another, a saloon keeper Finn recognized as having a reputation for mistreating women. Finn pushed his way through the crowd, his tall frame and broad shoulders making it easier to navigate through the press of bodies. The late afternoon sun glinted off his sandy hair as he removed his hat, a gesture of respect entirely absent from the proceedings thus far. $100, Finn called out, his voice cutting through the jeers and catcalls. The crowd fell silent, turning to look at the tall cowboy with the stern expression. The auctioneer's eyes widened at the substantial bid. "Well now, seems we have a gentleman with deep pockets." $100 for the troublemaking woman in pants. $110, shouted the saloon keeper, not willing to give up so easily. Finn stepped closer to the platform, his boots kicking up dust. $200, he said firmly, "and that's final." The crowd murmured. No one in Copper Creek would pay that much for a wife, let alone a troublemaker. The auctioneer grinned broadly. "Sold, to the gentleman in the brown hat." As Finn approached the platform, Nora's eyes narrowed. She traded one captor for another, and this one had paid a small fortune for her. "Nothing good could come of that. What's your name?" Finn asked quietly as he stood before her. "What does it matter to you?" she replied, her voice low but defiant. The auctioneer thrust a paper at Finn. "Sign here. She's all yours, mister. Do what you will with her." Finn took the paper and scribbled his name, then handed over the money. "Cut her bonds," he ordered. The sheriff, who had been watching from the side, stepped forward. "Now see here, Morgan, we're selling her to be taught a lesson." She can wear what she wants with me," Finn interrupted, his voice carrying across the now silent crowd. "And I don't recall asking for your opinion on how to handle my business." A collective gasp went through the onlookers. Women in pants was against the natural order of things, according to most of the town. But no one seemed eager to challenge the tall cowboy with the hard eyes and reputation as a crack shot. The sheriff grudgingly cut Nora's ropes. She immediately rubbed her wrists, eyeing Finn warily. "I'm not going to be your slave," she whispered fiercely, "or your whore." "I wouldn't expect either," he replied quietly. "Now, do you have belongings somewhere, or did these fine, upstanding citizens confiscate those too?" "My saddlebags and horse are at the livery," Nora said, still suspicious, but seeing no immediate alternative to following this stranger. Finn nodded. "Then let's collect them and be on our way. This town's hospitality has worn thin." He offered his arm, not as a restraint but as courtesy. Nora ignored it, stepping down from the platform unassisted. The crowd parted as they walked toward the livery stable, whispers following in their wake. "You just wasted $200, she said as they walked. "I'll be gone by nightfall." Finn's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. That would be your choice, madam, but I'd advise waiting until we're clear of the town limits. Some of these men might take your escape as a personal challenge. At the livery, Nora was relieved to find her chestnut mare, Penny, still there along with her saddlebags. The liveryman watched disapprovingly as she quickly checked the contents. "My rifle's gone," she said, anger flashing in her green eyes. "Sheriff took it," the liveryman said with obvious satisfaction. "Women ain't supposed to have firearms." Finn dropped several coins on the counter. "For my horse and the ladies, and I'd appreciate knowing where that rifle might have ended up." The liveryman's eyes darted to the money. "Sheriff probably has it at his office, but he won't give it back to her." "We'll see about that," Finn said, his voice pleasant but his eyes hard. They led their horses out into the street. Nora noticed that Finn's gelding was a magnificent black animal, well-muscled and obviously well cared for. It said something about a man how he treated his horse. "Why are you doing this?" she asked bluntly as they mounted up. Finn adjusted his hat against the setting sun. "Let's get your rifle first, then we can talk." They rode to the sheriff's office where Finn dismounted and tied his horse. "Wait here," he told Nora. "Let me handle this." Nora had never been good at following orders, but she recognized the wisdom in his words. The town already saw her as trouble. Appearing at the sheriff's office would only make things worse. 5 minutes later, Finn emerged with her Winchester rifle. He handed it up to her without comment, then mounted his own horse. "How did you?" she began. "Sheriff and I had a discussion about property rights," Finn said simply. "Let's ride." They headed north out of town, the sun setting behind them. Nora kept waiting for Finn to reveal his true intentions, but he simply rode beside her in companionable silence. After an hour, with the town well behind them and darkness settling over the landscape, he guided them off the trail toward a grove of cottonwoods. "We'll camp here tonight," he said, dismounting. "Creek nearby for water." Nora stayed in her saddle, hand near her rifle. "Mr. Morgan, Finn," he corrected, beginning to unsaddle his horse. "Finn, then, I appreciate what you did back there, but I need to understand what you expect in return." He paused, looking up at her with those steady blue eyes. "I expect nothing, Miss Bennett, Nora Bennett. Miss Bennett, I expect nothing. You're free to go wherever you please, now or in the morning." "I'd advise morning, as the desert gets mighty cold at night and those hills can be treacherous in the dark. But it's your choice." Nora studied him, trying to detect any deception. Finding none, she slowly dismounted. "Why would you pay so much money for a stranger, expecting nothing in return?" Finn continued caring for his horse. "My sister Caroline wore pants when working our family ranch. Town folk gave her hell for it. 5 years ago, some men decided to teach her a lesson about proper womanly behavior." His voice hardened. "She didn't survive their lesson." Nora's breath caught. "I'm sorry," he nodded, acknowledging her sympathy. "So when I saw what was happening to you, I couldn't ride away, couldn't let history repeat itself. And the money, $200 is a fortune. I've had a good season with the cattle, money well spent if you ask me." He gathered wood for a fire. "You hungry?" "I've got beans and bacon." Nora began unsaddling Penny, her mind whirling. Everything she'd experienced since arriving in Arizona territory had taught her to distrust men's intentions. Yet this cowboy seemed genuinely without ulterior motives. "Where are you headed?" she asked as they sat by the small fire later, eating the simple but satisfying meal Finn had prepared. "My ranch, about 2 days' ride north of here. Triple M Ranch, Morgan land for 3 generations now. You have family there, just me and my ranch hands." He poked at the fire. "My parents passed on and after Caroline." He trailed off, then cleared his throat. "What about you? What brings a woman alone to this territory, dressed in men's clothing?" Nora stared into the flames. "I came west from Boston after my father died. Left me with debts but no inheritance. Everything went to my cousin Richard. He offered to take care of me if I married him." She grimaced. "I declined his generous offer. So you came west to start fresh." "I have an uncle in San Francisco who offered me a place. I'm making my way there, taking odd jobs along the way." She gestured to her pants. These are practical. Can't ride astride properly in skirts, and side saddle is asking for a broken neck on these trails. Finn nodded. Makes sense to me. Not to the rest of the world, apparently. The world's slow to change. Finn poured her more coffee. What kind of odd jobs? I'm good with numbers. Worked as a bookkeeper in St. Louis for a month. In Santa Fe, I helped catalog a private library. She hesitated. I'm also not bad with this. She patted the rifle beside her. Finn raised an eyebrow. Your father teach you? Yes, he believed women should know how to defend themselves. She looked away. Fat lot of good it did me in Copper Creek. They took my gun before I could even reach for it. 6 against 1 are poor odds for anyone, Finn observed. They fell silent, listening to the night sounds of the desert. Nora found herself relaxing despite her earlier suspicions. There was something about Finn Morgan that inspired trust, though she'd been wrong about men before. I could use some help at my ranch, Finn said suddenly. Bookkeeping, mainly. My former foreman handled it, but he moved on last month. I'm months behind on the accounts. Nora stiffened. Is that why you really bought me? For cheap labor? No, he said firmly. That thought never crossed my mind until just now, sitting here learning about your skills. It's an offer of employment, Miss Bennett. Fair wages, your own cabin, and you can wear whatever damn clothes you please. She studied him across the fire. And if I decline? Then I'll see you safely to the next town tomorrow, one more hospitable to independent women, and wish you well on your journey to San Francisco. Nora considered his offer. A steady job would replenish her dwindling funds. And something told her the Triple M Ranch would be safer than continuing alone through territory where a woman in pants could end up on an auction block. How much are these fair wages? She asked practically. Finn named a sum that made her eyebrows rise. It was indeed fair, more than fair. And I'd have my own place. No, expectations? Your own cabin, he confirmed. Previously belonged to the foreman, and the only expectations are that you do the job you're hired for and don't steal the silver. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Though I don't actually have any silver. Despite herself, Nora smiled. I'll consider your offer, let me sleep on it. Finn nodded. Fair enough. He stood and gathered his bedroll. I'll sleep on that side of the fire, you take this side. We'll head out at first light. As Nora settled into her bedroll, rifle close at hand, she watched Finn through the dying flames. He'd positioned himself with his back to her, giving her privacy. It was a small gesture, but telling. For the first time since leaving Boston, Nora felt she might have found someone trustworthy in this wild territory. Whether that trust was warranted remained to be seen. Morning came with the soft glow of dawn spreading across the eastern sky. Nora woke to find Finn already up, tending a small fire with coffee brewing. She sat up, finger combing her hair and quickly braiding it. Morning, Finn said, pouring a cup of coffee and extending it to her. Sleep well. Well enough, she replied, accepting the cup gratefully. The desert night had been cold, but her blankets had kept her warm. Thank you. They ate a simple breakfast of hardtack and jerky, then packed up camp efficiently. As Nora tightened Penny's saddle cinch, she made her decision. I'll take the job, she said. For a month, then we'll see. Finn nodded, no triumph or surprise in his expression. Fair enough. Triple M Ranch will be glad to have you, Miss Bennett. Nora, she corrected. If we're going to work together, you might as well use my name. They rode north through the rugged landscape, skirting rocky outcroppings and crossing shallow streams. Finn proved to be a knowledgeable guide, pointing out landmarks and sharing stories of the territory. By midday, Nora found herself genuinely enjoying his company. So how big is this ranch of yours? She asked as they stopped to water the horses at a small spring. About 10,000 acres, Finn replied. Not the biggest spread in the territory, but good land. Runs from the foothills down to the river valley. And how many cattle? Near 2,000 head at last count, plus about 30 horses. Nora whistled softly. That's substantial. How many hands do you employ? 8 full-time, more during roundup and branding season. He looked at her curiously. You know something about ranching. My grandfather had a small farm in Pennsylvania. Nothing like your operation, but I understand the basics. She hesitated. Though I should warn you, my bookkeeping experience is mostly with merchant businesses, not ranching. Numbers are numbers, Finn said with a shrug. And you're already more qualified than me. I can barely keep my own signature straight. They continued their journey, stopping for the night at another well-chosen campsite near a stand of juniper trees. The routine felt comfortable now, caring for the horses, gathering wood, preparing a simple meal. They talked easily about neutral topics: the weather, the terrain, stories of places they'd seen. Nora found herself watching Finn when he wasn't looking, the confident way he moved, the gentleness with which he treated his horse, the respect with which he addressed her. He was unlike any man she'd met before, neither condescending nor intimidated by her independence. The second day of travel brought them into more verdant country, the desert giving way to grasslands and scattered trees. By late afternoon, Finn pointed to a distant ridge. "M land starts there," he said with quiet pride. "My grandfather staked the original claim, my father expanded it. I've added the north section since taking over." An hour later, they crested a hill, and Nora caught her first glimpse of the ranch headquarters, a collection of well-maintained buildings nestled in a protected valley. A substantial two-story house of hewn logs stood in the center, with several smaller cabins, a large barn, and various outbuildings arranged around it. A corral held several horses, and smoke rose from the chimney of what appeared to be a bunkhouse. "It's beautiful," Nora said sincerely. The setting sun bathed everything in golden light, making the scene appear almost like a painting. "Home," Finn said simply. Then he whistled sharply, alerting the ranch to their approach. As they rode into the yard, men emerged from various buildings. Nora felt their curious gazes but held her head high. She'd faced worse than curious cowboys. A tall, lean man with graying hair stepped forward. "Boss, didn't expect you back so soon." His eyes flicked to Nora, taking in her trousers without comment. "Hank, this is Miss Nora Bennett," Finn said, dismounting. "She'll be taking over the books and accounts. Miss Bennett, this is Hank Wilson, my foreman." Hank touched the brim of his hat. "Madam, welcome to M. One by one, Finn introduced the other hands: Pedro, Sam, Joey, Old Bill, Ned, and the cook, a cheerful Chinese man named Wang. Each man greeted her politely, though their expressions ranged from curious to confused to suspicious. "Miss Bennett will be staying in the old foreman's cabin," Finn informed them. "Joey, would you make sure it's ready? And Wang, could you prepare something special for supper? Miss Bennett has had a long journey." As the men dispersed to their tasks, Finn led Nora toward one of the smaller cabins set slightly apart from the others. "This will be yours," he said, opening the door. "It's not fancy, but it's private." The cabin was simple but clean: a main room with a small stove, table, and chair, and a curtained-off sleeping area with a proper bed. A small window looked out toward the main house. "There's a washroom behind the kitchen of the main house that you're welcome to use," Finn explained. "And meals are served in the main house, though Wang will understand if you prefer to take some meals here." "It's perfect," Nora said, genuinely pleased. After weeks on the trail, the small cabin seemed luxurious. "Thank you. I'll have your things brought over. Take some time to settle in and join us for supper when you're ready. About an hour from now." Left alone, Nora explored her new home. The bed had a real mattress, not just a straw tick. There was a small bookshelf with a few volumes, a wash basin, and hooks for clothing. Someone, perhaps the previous occupant, had left a pressed wildflower in a frame on the wall, a feminine touch that made her smile. When Joey brought her saddlebags, she unpacked her few possessions: a spare shirt, her mother's silver hairbrush, a well-worn copy of Pride and Prejudice, and the small derringer she kept hidden in her boot. Then she washed away the trail dust, as best she could, with the basin and pitcher of water Joey had provided. As she made her way to the main house for supper, Nora felt a curious mix of emotions: apprehension about her reception among this group of men, relief at having found safe employment, and a strange flutter whenever she thought of Finn Morgan. That last feeling was one she determined to squash immediately. Her employer was off limits, no matter how handsome or honorable he might be. The main house was comfortably furnished, with a large dining room adjacent to the kitchen. The men were already seated when she arrived, but they stood respectfully as Finn ushered her to a place at his right hand. Wang had indeed prepared something special: roast beef, potatoes, fresh bread, and even apple pie for dessert. The conversation was initially stilted, the cowboys clearly uncertain how to behave with a woman at the table, especially one in trousers. But Finn skillfully drew them out, asking about ranch business and encouraging them to share stories that might interest Nora. By the end of the meal, the atmosphere had relaxed considerably. Old Bill was regaling her with a tale about a particularly clever coyote that had eluded him for months, while Joey, the youngest hand, watched her with undisguised curiosity. "Miss Bennett's from Boston," Finn explained during a lull in conversation. "She's traveled across the country on her own, taking work as she goes." "All by yourself, madam?" Joey asked, eyes wide. "Weren't you scared?" Nora considered her answer carefully. "Sometimes. But fear doesn't accomplish much, so I tried not to dwell on it." Hank nodded approvingly. "Sound philosophy for anyone, madam." After supper, Finn showed her to a small office off the main living room. "This is where we keep the books," he said, lighting a lamp. "As you can see, they're in a bit of disarray." That was an understatement. Ledgers were stacked haphazardly, receipts were stuffed in drawers, and a layer of dust covered everything. "When you say months behind, exactly how many months are we talking about?" Nora asked, picking up a ledger dated from the previous year. Finn looked slightly embarrassed. "Might be closer to a year, honestly. My former foreman left rather suddenly, family emergency back east. Before that, he kept everything in order, but not in a way anyone else could understand," Nora finished, noting the cramped, nearly illegible handwriting. "Exactly. I can give you whatever information you need about sales, purchases, wages. I remember most of it, just never got around to writing it down properly." Nora nodded, already formulating a plan of attack. "I'll start tomorrow morning. It might take some time to sort through everything." "Take all the time you need," Finn said. "And if there's anything else you require to make your work easier, just ask." As they left the office, Finn paused. "I should warn you, some of the neighboring ranchers might be surprised by your position here and your attire." "I'm quite used to that," Nora said dryly. "I've no doubt. Just wanted you to know that their opinions don't reflect mine or the Triple M tickets. You're free to dress as you see fit and go about your business without interference." "Thank you," Nora said, genuinely touched by his consideration. "That means a great deal." Finn walked her back to her cabin in the cool evening air. Stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky, more stars than Nora had ever seen in Boston's smoke-filled skies. "Sleep well," Finn said, tipping his hat as they reached her door. "Breakfast is at sunrise, but Wang will keep something warm if you prefer to start later." "I'll be there at sunrise," Nora assured him. "Good night, Finn." "Good night, Nora." She watched him walk back toward the main house, his tall figure silhouetted against the last light in the western sky. For the first time in months, Nora felt something close to peace settle over her. The Triple M ranch might just be the sanctuary she needed, at least for a while. The next few weeks established a comfortable routine. Nora rose early each morning, joining the men for breakfast before Wang cleared the table. She spent her days in the office, slowly bringing order to the chaotic accounts. Often, Finn would join her for an hour or two, providing information about transactions and helping to decipher the previous foreman's cryptic notes. To her surprise, Nora found herself enjoying the ranch's rhythm. The men quickly accepted her presence, and if they had any opinions about her pants, they kept them to themselves. She took her meals with the household, listened to stories around the evening fire, and even attended Sunday services with everyone at the small church in the nearest town. wearing her one dress for the occasion. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after her arrival, Nora was deep in concentration over a particularly confusing set of figures when a shadow fell across her desk. She looked up to find Finn watching her with an amused expression. "You've been at those books for 6 hours straight," he said. Even Wang's meticulous preparations for dinner don't take that long. Nora stretched, suddenly aware of the stiffness in her shoulders. "I think I've finally untangled the cattle sales from last fall. Your former foreman had a unique approach to record keeping." "So I've gathered from your occasional muttering," Finn said, his blue eyes twinkling. "But even the most dedicated bookkeeper deserves a break. I'm heading out to check the south pasture. Would you like to ride along? It's a beautiful afternoon." Nora hesitated only briefly. The day was indeed lovely, and the thought of fresh air after hours bent over ledgers was appealing. "I'd like that very much." 20 minutes later, they were riding side by side across the rolling grasslands of the Triple M. Penny seemed as happy as Nora to be out in the open, tossing her head and moving with eager strides. "Your mare's got spirit," Finn observed. "Good quality in a horse. And in people?" Nora asked with a sidelong glance. "Especially in people," he agreed with a smile. They rode in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the creaking of saddle leather and the rhythmic hoofbeats. The landscape was magnificent green pastures giving way to stands of trees, with distant mountains providing a dramatic backdrop. "Tell me about Boston," Finn said eventually. "I've never been east of the Mississippi." Nora thought for a moment. "It's different in every way imaginable, crowded, noisy, always in motion. Buildings so tall they block the sun, more people in a few blocks than probably live in this entire territory." "Sounds awful," Finn said with mock horror. Nora laughed. "It has its charms, culture, libraries, theaters. But I don't miss the constant propriety, the rigid expectations of how a lady should behave, dress, speak." She glanced down at her trousers. "Obviously. Why did you really leave?" Finn asked, his tone gentle but direct. "You mentioned debts, your cousin, but I sense there's more." Nora was silent for so long that Finn began to apologize. "I'm sorry, that was too personal." "No," she interrupted. "It's a fair question." She took a deep breath. "My father was a professor at Harvard, respected but not wealthy. He had gambling debts I didn't know about until after his death. Our house, his books, everything had to be sold." "I'm sorry," Finn said quietly. "My cousin Richard offered a solution marriage. He'd settle the remaining debts, provide for me, but Richard had always—" She shuddered slightly. "He made me uncomfortable even as a child. The way he looked at me touched me when no one was watching, the thought of being his wife under his control." She shook her head. "I couldn't do it." "So you ran." "I left," she corrected firmly. "With what little money I could gather and a plan to reach my uncle in San Francisco, I cut my hair, bought men's clothing, and headed west by train as far as my money would take me. Then I worked, saved, and continued on." "Brave," Finn said simply. "Desperate," Nora countered, "but I've never regretted it. Even in Copper Creek, facing that auction block, I didn't regret my choice." They had reached a high point overlooking a lush valley where cattle grazed peacefully. Finn reined in his horse and dismounted, offering a hand to help Nora down. She accepted, trying to ignore the warmth that spread through her at his touch. "This is my favorite spot on the ranch," Finn said, leading her to a flat boulder perfect for sitting. "You can see almost the entire southern range from here." The view was indeed spectacular. The afternoon sun bathed everything in golden light, making the distant river gleam like a silver ribbon. "It's beautiful," Nora said. "Your family chose well." "They did," Finn agreed. "Though my father always said it was the land that chose us, not the other way around." As they sat side by side, Nora found herself studying Finn's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the small scar near his temple, the way the breeze ruffled his sandy hair. "What about you?" she asked. "You've never married, never wanted a family of your own." Finn's expression grew thoughtful. "I wanted it once, There was a girl, Abigail, daughter of a neighboring rancher. We were to be married 6 years ago. What happened? She chose someone else. A banker from Tucson offered her comforts and security I couldn't match at the time. He shrugged, but Nora could see the old hurt in his eyes. Can't blame her. Banking hours are more predictable than ranching. Her loss, Nora said without thinking. Finn turned to her, surprise and something else in his expression. Thank you for that. They fell silent, watching an eagle soar overhead. Nora was acutely aware of Finn beside her, his strength, his quiet confidence, the respect with which he always treated her. Dangerous thoughts for an employee to have about her employer. We should head back, she said, standing abruptly. I still have those ledgers to finish. Finn looked momentarily disappointed but nodded. Of course. They rode back more quickly than they had come, the easy companionship of the outward journey replaced by a certain tension. Nora kept her eyes on the trail, trying to regain her professional demeanor. As they approached the ranch buildings, Finn cleared his throat. There's a social at the town hall Saturday evening. Dancing, food, the usual affairs. The hands always attend. I was wondering if you might like to go. Nora tensed. As your bookkeeper, as yourself, Finn said carefully. Though I'd be honored to escort you if you'd allow it. Nora reined in her horse, forcing Finn to stop as well. Finn, I work for you? Yes. I live in your foreman's cabin, eat at your table, accept your wages. All true. Then surely you can see why. She gestured helplessly between them. Finn's expression grew serious. Nora, you're not indebted to me. You earn your keep and then some. Your presence at Triple M is an asset, not a charity. If you don't wish to attend the social, or if you'd prefer to go with the other hands as a group rather than with me specifically, I understand completely. Nora studied him, searching for any sign of manipulation or pressure. Finding none, she sighed. It's not that I don't wish to go with you. It's that I've worked hard to be independent, to not be under any man's control. I'm not offering control, Finn said quietly, just company, and perhaps a dance or two if you're willing. Despite her reservations, Nora found herself smiling. I haven't danced in a very long time. Then it's settled, Finn said, his face brightening. We'll attend the social. No obligations, no expectations, just neighbors enjoying an evening of music and conversation. As they continued toward the ranch, Nora wondered if she was making a mistake. Her heart had led her astray before. But something about Finn, Morgan, made her want to trust again, to believe that not all men sought to control or diminish her. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. The ranch was bustling with preparations for the upcoming cattle drive, and Nora found herself busier than ever organizing the accounts and supply orders. She saw little of Finn, who was out from dawn until dusk with the hands, checking the herds and planning the route. When Saturday arrived, Nora faced a dilemma. She hadn't anticipated what to wear. Her wardrobe consisted primarily of men's shirts, trousers, and the one plain dress she'd worn to church. None seemed appropriate for a social dance. A knock at her cabin door interrupted her contemplation. She opened it to find Wung standing there with a large wrapped package. Mr. Finn say give you this, he said with a friendly smile. For tonight. Puzzled, Nora accepted the package and thanked him. Inside, she found a dress not new but beautifully made of deep blue cotton with delicate embroidery at the collar and cuffs. A note in Finn's bold handwriting was pinned to the bodice. This belonged to my sister Caroline. She would be honored if you would wear it tonight, or wear your trousers. Either way, the Triple M will be proud to have you represent us. Nora traced the embroidery with her fingertips, touched beyond words by the gesture. That he would offer his sister's dress, knowing what had happened to her, showed a level of trust and respect that moved her deeply. When Finn knocked on her door that evening, Nora had made her choice. She opened the door wearing Caroline's blue dress, her auburn hair arranged in a simple but elegant style. Finn's expression as he saw her made her heart skip. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you for the dress, she replied. It means a great deal that you would share something of Caroline's with me. She would have liked you, Finn said with a soft smile. Strong, independent, not afraid to challenge convention. He offered his arm, and this time Nora took it without hesitation. They rode to town in the ranch wagon along with several of the hands, all freshly shaved and wearing their best clothes. The atmosphere was festive with good-natured teasing and laughter. The town hall was transformed for the occasion. Lanterns hung from the rafters. Tables laden with food lined one wall, and a small band was setting up in the corner. People from all the surrounding ranches and farms had turned out, creating a lively buzz of conversation. As they entered, Nora was aware of curious glances. Word had spread about the woman in trousers working at the Triple M, and her appearance in a dress on Finn Morgan's arm caused quite a stir. "Miss Bennett," a woman approached, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I'm Mrs. Hollister, the minister's wife. We're so pleased you could join us tonight." "Thank you," Nora replied politely. "It's a lovely gathering, indeed." Mrs. Hollister's gaze flicked between her and Finn. "Mr. Morgan, your ranch has certainly become the talk of the territory lately. First hiring a female bookkeeper, and now." She left the implication hanging. "The Triple M has always valued competence over convention, madam," Finn replied smoothly. "Miss Bennett has brought order to our accounts that we sorely needed." "How progressive of you, Mrs. Hollister said, her tone making the word sound like an insult. "Well, enjoy the evening." As she walked away, Nora glanced at Finn. "I believe we've just been judged and found wanting." Finn's eyes twinkled. "Her approval isn't high on my list of concerns." He gestured toward the dance floor, where couples were beginning to gather as the band started playing. "May I have this dance, Miss Bennett?" "You may, Mr. Morgan," Nora replied, allowing him to lead her to the floor. It had indeed been years since Nora had danced, but her body remembered the steps. Finn proved to be an excellent partner, guiding her confidently through the waltz. His hand at her waist was respectful but warm, and Nora found herself relaxing into the movement. "You dance well for a cowboy," she teased. "My mother insisted all her children learn," Finn replied. Said civilization might be scarce out here, but that was no excuse for barbarity on the dance floor. Nora laughed, drawing more curious glances from the surrounding couples. "She sounds wonderful." "She was," Finn said with a fond smile. "Strong-minded like you, never let my father get away with anything." They danced several more numbers, then took a break for refreshments. Nora was introduced to neighboring ranchers and townspeople, some welcoming, others barely concealing their disapproval. Through it all, Finn remained at her side, his steady presence a comfort. As the evening progressed, Nora found herself genuinely enjoying the social. Joey and the other hands came by occasionally, proudly introducing her as our Miss Bennett to their acquaintances. Even Hank unbent enough to ask her for a dance, proving to be surprisingly light on his feet for such a lanky man. During a lively reel, Nora noticed a group of men near the entrance watching her with particular interest. One, a well-dressed gentleman with a carefully groomed mustache, seemed vaguely familiar. When the dance ended, the man approached as Finn was getting Nora a cup of punch. "Miss Bennett, isn't it?" he said, his smile not reaching his cold eyes. "I believe we've met before." Looking at him more closely, Nora felt a chill of recognition. "In Copper Creek," she said flatly. "You were at the auction." "Indeed I was. Richard Thornton." He offered a slight bow. "I was quite disappointed when Mr. Morgan outbid me that day. I had plans for a woman of your spirit." Nora's skin crawled at his tone. "How fortunate for me that your plans were thwarted." "Temporary setback only, my dear." Thornton stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I've been making inquiries about you. A woman traveling alone, using different names in different towns. Quite suspicious behavior." "I've done nothing wrong," Nora said firmly, though her heart was racing. "Perhaps, perhaps not, but rumors can be damaging, especially to a woman in your unusual position." His eyes traveled over her appreciatively. "I have a proposition that might benefit us both." Before he could continue, Finn appeared at Nora's side, his expression darkening as he took in the situation. Is there a problem here? Thornton's smile widened. Mr. Morgan. I was just becoming reacquainted with Miss Bennett. We met briefly in Copper Creek. I remember, Finn said coldly. You were the saloon keeper who tried to buy a human being. Business transaction only, Thornton said with a shrug. No hard feelings on my part. In fact, I was just telling Miss Bennett that I might have an opportunity for her. My establishments could use someone with bookkeeping skills. Miss Bennett is employed at the Triple M, Finn stated flatly. For now. Thornton's gaze returned to Nora, but opportunities change. Think about my offer, my dear. I'll be in town for the next week. He tipped his hat. Evening, Mr. Morgan, Miss Bennett. As he walked away, Nora released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That man makes my skin crawl. What did he say to you? Finn asked, concern evident in his voice. Nothing specific. Implied threats, vague proposition. She attempted a smile. Nothing I haven't heard before. Finn's jaw tightened. Thornton's dangerous. He owns saloons and gambling houses throughout the territory. There are rumors of other, less legal enterprises as well. He seemed to know I've been traveling under different names, Nora said quietly. Made it sound suspicious. Have you? Finn asked, surprise evident in his voice. Nora nodded reluctantly. Sometimes, for safety. A woman alone attracts attention, not all of it welcome. She looked at him directly. I've never done anything illegal, Finn, just protected myself as best I could. I believe you, Finn said without hesitation, but Thornton's implications concern me. He doesn't make idle threats. The music had started again, but neither of them moved toward the dance floor. The festive atmosphere of the evening had been shattered by Thornton's appearance. Perhaps we should leave, Nora suggested. Finn considered, then shook his head. No. That would only give weight to whatever he's trying to imply. We'll stay, enjoy ourselves, and leave with the others when the social ends. His expression softened. Unless you're truly uncomfortable, Nora straightened her shoulders. I've faced worse than Richard Thornton. I won't let him ruin our evening. Finn smiled, offering his arm. That's the spirit. Now I believe they're playing a waltz and I'm still owed at least one more dance. They rejoined the dancers, but Nora remained aware of Thornton watching from the sidelines. Something about his interest frightened her more than she wanted to admit, even to herself. The remainder of the evening passed without incident, though Nora noticed Thornton speaking with several townspeople, including Mrs. Hollister, their heads bent close in what appeared to be serious conversation. When it came time to leave, she was relieved to climb into the wagon with Finn and the ranch hands. The ride back to the Triple M was quieter than the journey into town had been. The hands, tired from dancing and perhaps a bit too much punch, dozed or spoke in low tones. Finn drove the wagon, his expression thoughtful. Thank you for the evening, Nora said softly. Despite Mr. Thornton's appearance, I enjoyed myself. I'm glad, Finn replied. Though I'm sorry about the unpleasantness, Thornton has a reputation for holding grudges. Why would he hold a grudge against me, or you for that matter? Men like that don't like to lose, Finn said simply. And he lost very publicly in Copper Creek. They fell silent for a while, the only sounds the creak of the wagon and the steady clip-clop of the horse's hooves. Nora, Finn said eventually, his voice low so the others wouldn't hear. If there's anything in your past that could cause trouble, anything Thornton might use against you, I'd like to know. Not to judge, but to be prepared. Nora considered his words carefully. There's nothing criminal if that's what you're asking, but she hesitated. My cousin Richard, the one who wanted to marry me, he's influential in Boston society. When I left, he was displeased. He might have spread stories. What kind of stories? That I was unstable, prone to delusions, perhaps even that I stole from him. She met Finn's gaze steadily. I didn't. But a man's word carries more weight than a woman's, especially a woman who flees in the night wearing men's clothing. Finn nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. It helps to know what we might be facing. Nora questioned. The Triple M stands by its own, Finn said firmly. Whatever Thornton is planning, you won't face it alone. The simple declaration warmed Nora more than any elaborate promise could have. As they reached the ranch and Finn helped her down from the wagon, his hands lingering slightly at her waist, she felt a surge of emotion that both thrilled and terrified her. "Good night, Finn," she said softly. "Thank you again for the evening and for Caroline's dress." "It suits you," he replied, his eyes holding hers in the moonlight. "Good night, Nora." She walked to her cabin, aware of him watching until she was safely inside. As she removed Caroline's dress and carefully hung it up, Nora acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding for weeks. Now she was falling in love with Finn Morgan. The thought should have sent her running. Love meant vulnerability, dependency, potential heartbreak. Everything she'd fought to avoid since fleeing Boston. Yet instead of panic, Nora felt a strange calm. Finn had shown her nothing but respect and kindness. He valued her independence, her skills, her spirit. Still, she reminded herself he was her employer. And now, with Thornton's veiled threats hanging over her, complications she couldn't afford. Whatever her feelings, they would have to remain private. The next morning brought news that confirmed her fears. Joey burst into the dining room during breakfast, his young face flushed with anger. "Boss, you ain't gonna believe what they're saying in town," he exclaimed. "That saloon feller, Thornton, he's telling everyone Miss Bennett is some kind of fugitive, says she's wanted back east for theft and worse." All eyes turned to Nora, who set down her coffee cup with deliberate calm. "That's absolutely false," she said clearly. "Course it is," Hank said loyally. "Boy, lower your voice and sit down." Joey took a seat, still agitated. "There's more. He's offering a reward for information about her, and he's got some fancy lawyer papers he's showing around." Finn's expression had grown increasingly grim. "What kind of papers?" "Dunno exactly," Joey admitted. "But Mrs. Hollister was telling everyone after church that Miss Bennett ain't who she claims to be, and that harboring her could mean trouble for the Triple M." Nora felt the blood drain from her face. "Finn, I swear to you I know," he interrupted gently. "But we need to understand what we're facing." He turned to Joey. "Is Thornton still in town?" "Yes, sir. Took a room at the hotel, says he's staying until justice is served, whatever that means." Finn stood decisively. "Hank, I'm riding into town. Keep everyone close to the ranch today, just in case." "I'm coming with you," Nora said, also rising. "That might not be wise," Finn cautioned. "These are accusations against me," Nora insisted. "I won't hide while others defend my name." Finn studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, but stay close." An hour later, they rode into town side by side. Nora had chosen to wear her trousers again, partly for practicality but mostly as a statement she would not be intimidated into pretending to be someone she wasn't. The town seemed unusually quiet for a Sunday. A few people on the boardwalk stared as they passed, some nodding in greeting, others deliberately looking away. The hotel first, Finn decided, reining in outside the two-story building that served as the town's only accommodation for travelers. Inside, the hotel owner, Mr. Peterson, looked distinctly uncomfortable at their appearance. "Mr. Morgan, Miss Bennett, what can I do for you today?" "We're looking for Richard Thornton," Finn said directly. "I understand he's a guest here, Mr." "Thornton stepped out earlier," Peterson replied, not quite meeting their eyes. "Perhaps I could give him a message. When he returns, tell him Finn Morgan would like a word," Finn said, his tone making it clear this was more than a casual request. As they turned to leave, Peterson cleared his throat. "Mr. Morgan, there's been talk about Miss Bennett." He glanced nervously at Nora. "Mr. Thornton has documents, claims to represent her family back east." "What kind of documents?" Nora asked sharply. Peterson shifted uncomfortably. "Legal papers. Says you're not of sound mind, madam, that your family's been searching for you, worried sick." "That's a lie," Nora said firmly. "My only remaining family is an uncle in San Francisco who knows exactly where I am." "Well, madam, I'm just telling you what's being said." Peterson looked to Finn. "Sheriff's taking an interest too, might want to speak with him." They thanked Peterson for the information and headed next to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Taylor was a solid, no-nonsense man who had always treated Finn with respect. "Morgan," he greeted them as they entered. "Miss Bennett, figured you might be paying me a visit today." "Then you've heard the rumors," Finn said, "heard 'em and seen the papers." Taylor gestured for them to sit. "Thornton brought them by yesterday." Power of attorney signed by a Richard Bennett of Boston, claiming authority over his cousin Nora due to her unstable mental condition. There's also a warrant for arrest on charges of theft. "They're forgeries," Nora said immediately. "My cousin's name is Richard Carlton, not Bennett." "And I've stolen nothing." The sheriff studied her thoughtfully. "Can you prove that? Can Thornton prove his documents are legitimate?" Finn countered. "Why would a Boston family authorize a saloon keeper from Arizona Territory to act on their behalf?" "Fair question," Taylor acknowledged. "And one I've asked myself. But the papers look official with all the right seals and signatures." "Sheriff," Nora leaned forward, "I left Boston to escape my cousin's unwanted advances after my father's death. He threatened to have me committed to an asylum if I refused his proposal of marriage. I took nothing but what was rightfully mine." Taylor's expression softened slightly. "I'm inclined to believe you, Miss Bennett, but I've got a job to do. These accusations are serious." "What do you suggest?" Finn asked. "Wire your uncle in San Francisco," Taylor advised Nora. "Get him to confirm your story, and maybe contact authorities in Boston to verify the legitimacy of these documents. Until then," he hesitated, "I'd advise staying at the ranch. Thornton's stirring up sentiment against you in town." As they left the sheriff's office, Nora's thoughts were racing. "We need to send that wire immediately," she said. "And I should write to my uncle explaining everything." Finn nodded, but his attention had shifted to something across the street. "Thornton," he said quietly, "with Mrs. Hollister and what looks like half the town council." Nora followed his gaze. Sure enough, Richard Thornton stood on the boardwalk outside the general store, deep in conversation with several of the town's most influential citizens. As if sensing their observation, he looked up, a satisfied smile spreading across his face when he spotted them. "Ah, Miss Bennett," he called, crossing the street toward them. "Or should I say, Miss Carlton? I've been hoping to continue our conversation from last night." "There's nothing to discuss, Mr. Thornton," Nora replied coldly. "Your documents are forgeries and your accusations are false." "Strong words from a fugitive," Thornton remarked, his smile never wavering. "Your cousin is most concerned about your welfare. He's offered a substantial reward for your safe return to Boston." "My cousin is a liar and a would-be abuser," Nora stated flatly, drawing gasps from several onlookers who had gathered to witness the confrontation. Thornton's expression hardened. "Precisely the kind of delusional statements that concern your family." "Sheriff," he turned to Taylor, who had followed them outside, "I must insist you take this woman into custody for her own protection, as well as to answer for the theft charges." "I haven't seen sufficient evidence to warrant an arrest," Taylor replied evenly. "Miss Bennett is a respected employee of the Triple M Ranch with no history of trouble in this territory." "Then perhaps this will convince you," Thornton said, withdrawing a folded paper from his jacket. "A telegram I received this morning from the Boston police, confirming the outstanding warrant for Nora Carlton, also known as Nora Bennett." Taylor took the telegram, reading it with a frown. "This appears legitimate," he admitted reluctantly. "It's a fabrication," Finn insisted. "Anyone could send a telegram claiming to be the Boston police." "True enough," Taylor conceded. "Which is why I'm not making any arrests today. But," he turned to Nora, "I will need you to remain in the territory until this matter is resolved. Consider yourself under investigation, Miss Bennett." "She'll stay at the Triple M," Finn stated firmly. "I'll vouch for her." "That's acceptable for now," Taylor agreed, "but I'll be sending wires to Boston myself to verify these claims." Thornton's smug expression faltered slightly. "Sheriff, surely you can see this woman is dangerous." "Morgan is clearly besotted and not thinking clearly." "Careful, Thornton," Finn warned, his hand instinctively moving toward his gun. That's enough, Taylor said sharply. Both of you. Miss Bennett will remain at the Triple M until I receive responses to my inquiries. Thornton, I expect you to cease spreading accusations until we have confirmation one way or the other. With that, the sheriff walked back to his office, effectively ending the confrontation, but the damage had been done. The townspeople watching were already whispering among themselves, casting suspicious glances at Nora. "This isn't over," Thornton said quietly as they moved toward their horses. "Your cousin is a very determined man, Miss Carleton, as am I." "Why are you doing this?" Nora demanded. "What possible interest could you have in me?" Thornton stepped closer, his voice dropping so only she and Finn could hear. "Let's just say I recognize a valuable commodity when I see one. A woman with your unique qualities would be an asset in my business enterprises." "Your cousin's reward is merely a bonus." Finn moved between them, his expression dangerous. "You're mistaking my restraint for weakness, Thornton. It's not a mistake you want to make twice." With a final mocking smile, Thornton tipped his hat and walked away, rejoining Mrs. Hollister and the others, who immediately bent their heads together in whispered conversation. The ride back to the Triple M was tense and mostly silent. Nora's mind was whirling with implications and possibilities, none of them good. It wasn't until they were halfway to the ranch that she spoke. "I should leave," she said abruptly. "Continue to San Francisco as I planned. This is bringing trouble to you and the Triple M." "No," Finn said firmly. "Running now would only confirm their suspicions. But staying puts you at risk." "If the town turns against you because of me, let them," Finn interrupted. "The Triple M doesn't answer to town gossips." Nora studied his profile, the determined set of his jaw. "Why are you doing this, Finn? You barely know me." Finn slowed his horse, turning to meet her gaze directly. "I know enough. I know you're honest, hardworking, and brave. I know you've faced down prejudice and danger with more dignity than most men could muster. And I know that whatever your past holds, you deserve to face it on your own terms, not Thornton's." His words touched something deep within her. "Thank you," she said softly, "but this could get worse before it gets better. Thornton seems determined, and my cousin, if he's truly involved, he can be ruthless." "So can I," Finn said simply, "when necessary." They continued toward the ranch, the shared danger creating a new bond between them that transcended employer and employee. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Back at the Triple M, Finn called a meeting with all the hands. Plainly and without embellishment, he explained the situation, the false accusations, Thornton's involvement, and the sheriff's investigation. "Anyone who doesn't want to be part of this can draw their wages and leave with no hard feelings," he concluded. "I won't hold it against you." The men exchanged glances, but no one moved. Finally, Hank spoke for all of them. "We're Triple M, boss. Miss Bennett's one of us now. We stand together." Nora felt a lump in her throat at their loyalty. These rough cowboys, who had initially regarded her with such suspicion, were now willing to stand against the town for her sake. "Thank you," she said simply. "All of you." The next few days established a new routine at the ranch. Nora continued her work on the accounts, but never alone. Finn insisted that someone be with her at all times. The hands took turns riding patrol around the property, watching for any sign of trouble from town. Meanwhile, Finn sent wires to San Francisco and Boston, seeking to establish the truth and counter Thornton's claims. Nora wrote a lengthy letter to her uncle, explaining everything and begging for his help in clearing her name. On the fourth day after their confrontation with Thornton, Joey rode in from town with news. "Sheriff's received responses to his wires," he announced as they gathered for the midday meal. "Says he needs to speak with Miss Bennett and Mr. Morgan right away." Finn and Nora exchanged glances. "Did he say what the responses contained?" Finn asked. Joey shook his head. "No, sir, but he seemed mighty serious, and Thornton was at his office when I was there." "We'll go immediately," Finn decided. "Hank, you're in charge until we return." The ride to town was tense, both of them preparing for the worst. Would she be arrested? Would Finn face charges for harboring her? The questions hung between them, unspoken but present. Sheriff Taylor was waiting in his office, his expression unreadable. Thornton sat in a chair against the wall, his smug smile suggesting victory. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Morgan," Taylor greeted them. "Thank you for coming promptly. I've received responses to my inquiries that shed some light on this situation." "And," Finn prompted when Taylor hesitated. The sheriff picked up several papers from his desk. "I received a wire from the Boston police confirming that there is indeed a warrant for the arrest of Nora Carlton on charges of theft. However," he continued as Thornton started to speak, "I also received this wire from a Judge William Hayes of the Boston Municipal Court." He read aloud. "Warrant for Nora Carlton issued based on sworn statement of Richard Carlton only. No evidence presented. Carlton's reputation questionable. Recommend extreme caution." Thornton's smile faded slightly. "A single judge's opinion doesn't invalidate a legal warrant." "Perhaps not," Taylor agreed. "But this might." He held up another telegram. From Francis Bennett of San Francisco, identifying himself as Nora's uncle and confirming her account of fleeing unwanted advances from her cousin. He also states that he has initiated legal proceedings in Boston challenging the theft charges as fabricated. Nora felt a surge of hope. Her uncle had received her letter and was already taking action. "Furthermore," Taylor continued, "I took the liberty of contacting authorities in Prescott regarding you, Mr. Thornton. They informed me that you're currently under investigation for multiple violations of territorial law, including operating illegal gambling operations and possible involvement in human trafficking." Thornton's face darkened. "Baseless accusations." "Perhaps," Taylor said mildly. "But they do make me question your motives in this matter." He turned to Nora. "Miss Bennett, based on the information I've received, I see no grounds to detain you. The warrant from Boston is questionable at best, and your uncle's testimony supports your version of events." "This is outrageous," Thornton sputtered, standing abruptly. "The girl is a thief and a lunatic. Her cousin has offered a substantial reward, which you hope to claim," Finn interrupted coldly, "along with whatever other plans you had for her." Thornton's hand moved toward his jacket, but froze as both Finn and the sheriff reached for their guns. "I wouldn't," Taylor advised quietly. "Assaulting a law officer and a respected rancher would end badly for you, Thornton." For a moment, tension filled the small office. Then Thornton slowly lowered his hand, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "This isn't over," he said, glaring at Nora. "Your cousin is a powerful man with connections throughout the country, and I have friends in this territory that you can't imagine. Are you threatening Miss Bennett?" Taylor asked pointedly. Thornton forced a smile. "Merely stating facts, Sheriff. Good day to you all." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Sheriff Taylor sighed heavily. "I'd advise caution, both of you. Thornton doesn't take defeat well, and he does have connections, not all of them on the right side of the law." "We'll be careful," Finn assured him. "Thank you for your thoroughness in this matter, Sheriff." "Just doing my job," Taylor replied. "Though I must admit, Miss Bennett, your situation has been one of the more interesting cases to cross my desk." As they left the sheriff's office, Nora felt lighter than she had in days. "My uncle came through," she said wonderingly. "I wasn't sure he would." "Family that's worth anything comes through when it matters," Finn observed. "Will you still go to San Francisco to join him?" The question caught Nora off guard. In the chaos of recent events, she hadn't thought about her original plan to continue west. The Triple M had begun to feel like home in a way no place had since her father's death. "I don't know," she admitted. "I need to think about it." They mounted their horses and started back toward the ranch. The confrontation with Thornton seemed to be resolved, at least legally, but Nora couldn't shake the feeling that the danger hadn't passed. Her intuition proved correct. As they rode out of town, they were unaware of Thornton watching from the hotel window, his expression murderous. Nor did they see him speaking with three rough-looking men behind the saloon an hour later, pressing money into their hands and pointing in the direction of the Triple M. The attack came at dusk, as Nora was walking from the main house to her cabin after supper. Three riders appeared suddenly from behind the barn, bandanas covering their faces, guns drawn. "That's her," one shouted. "Grab her." Nora didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the bunkhouse, shouting a warning. The nearest rider spurred his horse after her, leaning down to grab her. A shot rang out and the rider yelped in pain, clutching his arm. Finn stood on the porch of the main house, rifle in hand, already taking aim at the second attacker. The ranch erupted into action. Hands poured from the bunkhouse, armed and ready. The wounded attacker wheeled his horse around, fleeing back the way they had come. His companions hesitated only briefly before following. "After them," Finn ordered, running to where Nora stood, breathing hard from her sprint. "Are you hurt?" "No," she assured him, though her heart was racing. "They didn't touch me." Hank and several of the hands were already mounting up to pursue the attackers. Finn looked torn between joining them and staying with Nora. "Go," she urged. "I'll be fine here with the others." With a nod, Finn grabbed his horse and joined the pursuit. Nora watched them disappear into the gathering darkness, fear and anger warring within her. Thornton had made good on his implied threat more quickly than she'd expected. Joey stayed with her, rifle at the ready, as they waited in the main house for the men to return. Wang brought coffee and tried to distract her with stories of his childhood in China, but Nora's thoughts remained with the riders in the darkness. It was nearly midnight when they heard horses approaching. Joey went to the window, rifle raised cautiously until he confirmed it was Finn and the others returning. "They got away," Finn reported grimly as he entered. "Lost their trail in the hills, but we found this." He held up a bandana, not the one that had covered the attacker's face, but a distinctive red silk neckerchief with a playing card pattern. "Thornton's men wear those," Hank explained. "Seen him at his saloon in Prescott." "So we have proof it was Thornton," Nora said. "Circumstantial at best," Finn admitted, "but enough for me to have a serious conversation with our friend in town tomorrow." "You can't go alone," Nora insisted. "He's already shown he's willing to use violence." "I won't be alone," Finn assured her. "Hank and the boys will be with me." "And me," Nora stated firmly. Finn shook his head. "Too dangerous. You're the one he wants." "Exactly why I should be there," Nora argued. "I won't hide while others fight my battles, Finn. I never have." They locked eyes, a silent battle of wills. Finally, Finn nodded reluctantly. "But you stay between me and Hank at all times, and you wear this." He withdrew a small derringer from his desk. "Keep it hidden but accessible." Nora accepted the gun, though she didn't mention she already had her own hidden in her boot. An extra weapon couldn't hurt in the current circumstances. The next morning, a formidable group rode into town. Finn, Nora, Hank, and four of the most capable hands. They headed directly to the hotel, but Mr. Peterson informed them that Thornton had checked out at dawn, claiming urgent business in Prescott. "Convenient," Finn remarked dryly. "Sheriff should know about this," Hank suggested. They found Sheriff Taylor already aware of the attack. "One of your would-be kidnappers showed up at Doc Miller's with a bullet in his arm," he explained. "Wouldn't say who shot him or why, but the timing's suspicious." "It was Thornton's doing," Finn said flatly, showing the sheriff the distinctive bandana. Taylor examined it, his expression grave. "Not enough for an arrest warrant, but certainly enough for me to send some pointed questions to the authorities in Prescott." He looked at Nora. "Until Thornton's dealt with properly, you're still at risk, Miss Bennett." "I'm aware," Nora replied calmly, "but I won't be driven into hiding." "Admirable, but perhaps not practical," Taylor suggested. "Thornton's not the type to give up easily, especially now that he's been publicly thwarted." "The Triple M is well defended," Finn stated, "and I've sent for additional hands from neighboring ranches. We'll be ready if he tries again." As they left the sheriff's office, Nora noticed the changed attitude of the townspeople. Where before there had been suspicious glances and whispers, now there were respectful nods and even a few sympathetic smiles. Word of the attack had spread quickly, shifting public opinion in her favor. The next 2 weeks passed in a state of heightened vigilance at the Triple M. True to his word, Finn brought in additional hands to help patrol the property. Nora continued her work, but never alone, and always with a weapon close at hand. News came from Sheriff Taylor that authorities in Prescott had issued a warrant for Thornton's arrest based on the attempted kidnapping and other outstanding charges. But Thornton himself had disappeared, last seen heading toward the New Mexico territory. Gradually, life at the ranch began to return to normal. The extra hands returned to their own spreads, though Finn maintained regular patrols. Nora found herself settling back into her routines, the fear of Thornton's return slowly receding. One evening, as she sat on the porch of her cabin watching the sunset, Finn joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Beautiful night," he commented, handing her one of the cups. "It is," she agreed. The mountains in the distance were painted in shades of purple and gold by the setting sun, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of juniper. They sat in companionable silence for a while, sipping their coffee. Finally, Finn spoke. "I received a letter today from your uncle in San Francisco." Nora turned to him in surprise. "My uncle wrote to you," Finn nodded. "Apparently, you mentioned me in your letters to him. He wanted to thank me personally for helping you." That was kind of him. He also mentioned that he secured legal representation in Boston. "The theft charges against you have been dismissed for lack of evidence, and your cousin is facing scrutiny for filing false reports." Relief washed over Nora. "So it's truly over." "It seems so," Finn agreed. "Your uncle also mentioned that his offer for you to join him in San Francisco still stands. He has connections with several businesses that could use a skilled bookkeeper." The statement hung in the air between them, unspoken questions behind it. Would she go now that the danger had passed? "Now that her name was cleared, I see," Nora said carefully. "That's good to know." Finn studied his coffee cup as if it contained great mysteries. "The Triple MTK's books are in better shape than they've ever been. The cattle drive was successful, partly thanks to your organization of the supplies and contracts. The men respect you. Wang says you're the only person besides him who appreciates his authentic Chinese cooking." Nora smiled at that. High praise indeed. "What I'm trying to say," Finn continued, suddenly looking directly at her, "is that the Triple M needs you, not just as a bookkeeper but as part of the family we've built here." Nora's heart quickened at his words and the intensity in his blue eyes. "Are you offering me permanent employment, Mr. Morgan?" "I'm offering you a home, Nora, if you want it." His voice softened. "I'm offering myself too if that's something you might consider, though I understand if it's not what you're looking for." The directness of his declaration took her breath away. This wasn't a demand or an expectation, it was an offering, freely given with no strings attached. "Finn," she began, then paused, gathering her thoughts. "When I left Boston, I swore I'd never again put myself in a position where a man could control my life. I've guarded my independence fiercely." His expression fell slightly, but he nodded in understanding. "I respect that." "But," Nora continued, "I've learned that there's a difference between dependency and partnership, between control and caring." She met his gaze steadily. "You've never once asked me to be less than who I am. You've defended my right to make my own choices, even when those choices weren't conventional." Hope began to dawn in Finn's eyes. And I've fallen in love with you," Nora said simply. "With your kindness, your integrity, your respect for others, with the family you've built at the Triple M. With the home you've created here." Finn set down his coffee cup and took her hand gently in his. "So you'll stay?" "Yes," Nora said, smiling, "though I'll need to write to my uncle and explain." "I think he'll understand," Finn said, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "His letter suggested he already suspected where your heart might be leading you." "Perceptive man, my uncle," Nora murmured. Finn leaned closer. "May I kiss you, Miss Bennett?" "You may, Mr. Morgan." she replied, her heart soaring as his lips met hers in a tender, reverent kiss that held both passion and promise. When they finally parted, Finn rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Nora Bennett. Have since I saw you standing defiant on that auction platform, refusing to be broken by men who couldn't understand your strength. I love you too," she whispered, "though I fought against it for the longest time. Stubborn woman," he teased gently. "Independent woman," she corrected with a smile. "Who can wear whatever the hell she wants," Finn added, grinning. "Even to our wedding," Nora asked boldly. Finn's eyes widened in delight. "Especially to our wedding, though Mrs. Hollister might never recover from the shock." Nora laughed, a free and joyous sound that floated out across the ranch that had become her home. Here, with this man who valued her exactly as she was, she had found what she'd been seeking since leaving Boston: not just safety or independence, but belonging, partnership, love. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they remained on the porch, talking of their future together, a future where a woman in pants was not a scandal, but simply one half of a formidable team, building something beautiful in the wild Arizona territory. 1 year later, the Triple M Ranch was thriving. Under Nora's meticulous management, profits had increased substantially. Finn had used the additional income to improve the property, adding modern conveniences to the main house and expanding their herds. Their wedding had indeed caused a stir in town, not because Nora wore trousers, though she had briefly considered it just to see Mrs. Hollister's face, but because she chose a practical riding skirt and boots rather than a traditional gown. The ceremony was held on the ranch, with Hank serving as Finn's best man and Nora's Uncle Francis traveling from San Francisco to give her away. In the months that followed, Nora and Finn settled into married life with remarkable ease. They had their disagreements, of course both being strong-willed individuals with firm opinions, but they approached each conflict as partners, with mutual respect and a willingness to compromise. Word had come from Boston that Richard Carleton had faced legal consequences for his false accusations, forced to pay substantial damages and suffering considerable damage to his reputation. As for Thornton, he had eventually been captured in New Mexico and returned to Arizona to face charges. Justice, slow but certain, had prevailed. On a warm spring morning, Nora stood on the porch of the main house, her house now, watching as Finn worked with a young horse in the corral. His patience and gentle firmness with the animal reflected the same qualities she had come to cherish in their marriage. Her hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach, where the first subtle signs of their child had begun to make themselves known. She hadn't told Finn yet, wanting to be certain before sharing the news that would change their lives once again. As if sensing her thoughts, Finn looked up from his work and caught her watching. His face broke into a smile that still made her heart skip, even after a year of marriage. He said something to Joey, who had been assisting him, then walked toward the house, removing his gloves as he came. "Good morning, Mrs. Morgan," he greeted her, leaning in for a kiss. "You're up early." "The ranch doesn't run itself," she replied with a smile. "Besides, I enjoy watching you work." Finn's eyes twinkled. "Just enjoying the view, are you?" among other things. Nora took his hand, suddenly nervous despite her certainty that he would be overjoyed at her news. "Finn, there's something I need to tell you." His expression grew serious. "Is everything all right?" "Everything is wonderful," she assured him, "but there's going to be a change around here in about 7 months. Finn looked puzzled for a moment, then understanding dawned in his eyes. "Nora, are you saying?" She nodded, her eyes filling with happy tears. "We're going to have a baby." With a whoop of joy that startled the horses in the nearby corral, Finn lifted her off her feet, spinning her in a circle before setting her gently back down. "A baby," he repeated in wonder, his hand coming to rest on her still flat stomach. "Our child. Are you happy?" Nora asked, though his reaction had made the answer obvious. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Finn confirmed, kissing her tenderly. "Though I have one important question." "What's that?" His eyes danced with mischief. Will our daughter be allowed to wear pants?" Nora laughed, joy bubbling up from deep within her. "Our daughter or son will wear whatever they damn well please," she declared. "Just like their mother." "Just like their mother," Finn agreed, drawing her close. "The strongest, bravest, most beautiful woman in the Arizona Territory." As they stood together in the morning sunlight, Nora reflected on the journey that had brought her here from a frightened young woman fleeing Boston to a confident wife, future mother, and co-owner of one of the territory's most respected ranches. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but every step had led her to where she was meant to be. In Finn Morgan, she had found not a master but a partner. In the Triple M, not just employment but a home. And in herself, the courage to stand firm in who she was, regardless of convention. She was Nora Morgan, now still in pants when it suited her, still independent in spirit, but no longer alone. And as Finn's hand rested protectively over their growing child, she knew that the family they were creating would carry forward the legacy they both believed in. That true strength came not from power over others, but from standing beside them, supporting their right to be exactly who they were meant to be. "I love you," she whispered, leaning into his embrace. "And I love you," Finn replied, his voice rich with emotion. Pants and all. The Triple M ranch spread out before them, bathed in morning light, a kingdom built on respect, hard work, and love. Their kingdom, their future, together.